Hey, I am thrilled once again to bring back my honorary co-host, Kate Newlin, the much requested Kate Newlin. She has also brought with her John Margaritis, the brilliant, engaging, very knowledgeable John Margaritis, for a conversation. The last time we spoke, I think our title was Biden is the Baseball. Check that one out. It's pretty interesting. Also, I wanted to let you know that Kate will be starting her own podcast quite soon, and I cannot wait to share that news with you when it drops. Meanwhile, let's get talking. Here is Kate Newlin and John Margaritas, as promised. So, hey, Kate, take the reins. Let's talk.
All right, sounds like a plan. You know, I've been trying to figure out as we've gone through a couple of these now, this whole notion of healing and where, like if you think about the metaphor of a wound or as your backdrop behind you, that renting of garment of the flag,
Right.
um, and one thought is a bridge, right? Like maybe if you think about how skin heals or a wound heals, it takes time and it comes slowly. It's a you need sometimes you need stitches, sometimes you need salve, whatever the wound is, you need different approaches and different healthcare methodologies. And so one of the thoughts I had was my instinct is at the granular level that that rather than trying to think about it globally in big, capital letters and
The
bold
big G,
type,
right?
yeah, maybe there is, like the way we physically heal, maybe there is a sort of granular cell by cell. And so I was thinking about that, and John and I had a chance to chat earlier this week, and he brought up what has worked for him in business to be able to actually lower people's shoulders and get to a meaningful conversation. So John, you want to lead us off here?
Well, what I found in business, particularly when you're meeting someone for the first time, uh, you look for a common ground. You look for something that you can both identify with. And that usually is kids, family. That's always a start.
Right.
And if there are no kids, then you move on to what else. Now, in my case, I love to play golf, so I would mention it. And if the other person was a golfer, man, instant bonding. All of a sudden, you got a leg up. If the other person has kids, same thing. So you've got a mutual ground that you can start a discussion, and it becomes personal in a very positive way. Oh, he's got two kids. I've got three kids. We all have these trials and tribulations. If you want to back it up once more, you can just go to relationships. Are you married? That also is a start. But kids are usually the big bonding
Huge. Yeah.
position. And from there, you can lead a discussion almost in any direction. It just seems to work. Um, I have a group of friends. The only thing the six of us have in common is we all smoke cigars. And in that group, there are two dyed in the wool, not changing Trumpers. There are four sane people, and we all get along. Why? We all smoke cigars. We can argue about it. We can have the discussion without the animus because there's a common ground. It's crazy. I mean, smoking cigars. I know morons that I wouldn't talk to who smoke cigars. But for whatever reason, this brings the six of us together. And we have had discussions. And I think at least one out of the two is moving in, if not in the Biden direction, in the I'm not voting for Trump direction. All because in a very non confrontational setting, we can have a discussion.
Right.
So
So
that's,
how do we,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that becomes the presenting question is, and we talked about this on another time, was this notion, Clinton's notion of triangulation, right? Like what we don't agree, we're at odds politically, but is there a third part of the triangle that we share a common belief about, and the value of families? Now, when John was first saying this to me, I kind of wanted to dismiss it out of hand, because I thought that's where the strife is really been the hardest, right? Like
Through that,
that's
absolutely, yeah.
Thanksgivings,
You're
you know,
right.
with family, that that's where it gets really, really rancorous. But then I was thinking about it in terms of the term healing, and to think about how real healing really happens. It is at the granular level. It would be in this context at the personal responsibility level, that all right, I'm now going to have a conversation with a person I know I don't share the same values with on this politically, but that doesn't mean the fabric of family has to be rent apart. And it also can mean that you get to a less acrimonious difference of opinion, like that's how you begin to lower the shoulders, and make there be safe spaces to have, disagreements. We're not, healing the division.
And I think the word is fabric. I mean,
Yeah.
think about what that means. I mean, on so many levels. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's woven together. When it's torn apart,
Right.
then how do you bring that back together again? And sometimes, the John was pre-med, so he probably knows this better than I do. But sometimes when the broken bone knits up together, it's actually stronger, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
However, if untreated, it will
Yes.
fester and get worse.
Gangrene might set in.
Right, right. So if we ignore the
I think
differences,
that's where we are, John.
if we ignore the differences, they're not going to get better. They're not going to get healed.
Or just avoid
So
them.
how do we approach then, and not to interrupt, but how do we approach then the those who do not want to smoke the cigar with the other, or who don't want to sit down at the dinner table with the other, who are absolutely adamant, and for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene today, now she's going against Mike Johnson.
I saw that. Yes.
Like, what is that about?
They
Well,
shoot
let's
horses,
just
don't they?
posit that we weren't going to invite her to Thanksgiving dinner.
I know, but we know that. However, she does make, unfortunately, that woman makes a difference in my son's life and in all of our lives. She does. She has a seat there. She has a voice there. She wore the MAGA hat there. How do we talk with someone like her? That's my issue. She's got a huge voice there.
Right, but there are some people you're never going to change, and we can't be.
I know some people you never want to change, like Uncle Charlie is one thing, John. Some people that that you're never going to change, like somebody who's sitting, in Congress, who has a decision on my life and my son's life and your children's lives. That's a whole different story.
But there's a pathway here, if we just pause in it for a moment, which is to say, if you can reestablish respectful relationship with your Uncle Charlie, okay, with the as John is eroding the molecules of the 6 down to 2, down to maybe 1.5, and we believe in the power of democracy, then as people, I think of it at like a molecular structure, as those molecules begin to move away from these forces, the ones you're not going to change, either they have to change because they're losing the votes, they're shedding votes. They're shedding the dead skin cells, right? And or they don't get reelected and they lose their bully pulpit and they go become a commentator on Fox and Charlie Brown adult speak and scream for
Wow, wow, wow. But we
Yeah.
do have a time constraint here.
Yes.
We do.
Well, you
Right.
didn't say heal the division in 10 minutes, right?
Did not say heal the division in 10
no, we
minutes,
can
or
find
even 6 months. I
Yeah.
need to change the name of this podcast. Heal
Yeah.
the division ASAP, ASAP.
Right. Exactly.
I'm gonna have to rethink that, Kate.
Yeah. Speed the plow. It's
I was in that play. Go ahead.
that, that then you say by when, right? Like, yes, this can happen perhaps even glacially, but it happens, one cigar at a time in John's metaphor.
Well, John's metaphor for Major League Baseball was brilliant.
Yeah. So it's that notion that says we didn't get here overnight, right? This has been since
evolved over a long period of time. Yes.
Yeah. So, and something I've been wondering about lately is, what I'm trying to do is figure out the why, the thing behind the thing,
right?
Of why this is the to my mind, the cult following that he's amassed sits on something that I don't see when I listen to it, right? Like I don't get it. What is that appeal? What is that belief system? So one approach, as I was thinking about this, what's happened in the last 10 years or so that, and you go back to before the, even the Tea Party was what, 2010 kind of thing, but then slowly, little by little, this anger built. And I think perhaps coincidentally, perhaps not, the idea of the victimization of the South, the lost cause of the South became less unifying. The sense of we're taking down the monuments. You have to take down the flag, the Confederate flag. That there's a transit that the country was making, but perhaps there was a sense of identity that had to do with, the nobility of a lost cause, of being on the losing side, of something proud in the Confederacy.
Watching the statue of Robert E. Lee being taken down?
That crashed into the notion of identity.
Don't the people that watch that with tears in their eyes know exactly why that was happening? No, I don't think they do.
No, and I think that's the point, is we crashed, and I, from my perspective, justifiably, we crashed those monuments. We took them, we threw them away, we took down the flag from the courthouses, like we did this stuff because we were on a wave, but we didn't bring them into that wave. And what they're left with is this hunger for having been on the losing side, right? On the noble, I mean, it was called, I think, the lost cause, the grand old cause, that they all felt this attachment to, of 150 years ago, we did something noble, and yes, it was doomed to fail, but we were on the side of nobility. We stood up for it. And when we take the props away from that, then they search around, and what do they find? Somebody else that can give them that sense of victimization, of not being understood, of having not be part of the fabric of the country. And then you get to this place, well, where nature abhors a vacuum, right? Like, boom, here it comes. you're not being heard. You're not, we're going to make America great again, but it fills that emotional void without it, without ever understanding that that's what was happening. We just supplanted one lost cause for.
So help me out here.
Yep.
Help me out with a 30-year-old white male MAGA supporter who was likely involved with, January 6th. Why is he so driven toward the Confederate flag, who, by the way, I would imagine has no idea who or what Robert E. Lee was ever about? How do you reckon with that?
From my perspective, it's an emotional void, that sense of belonging to a misunderstood faction.
John?
And the old misunderstood faction in the South, they had it on their license plates. They had it at the courthouse. It was okay to mourn having lost. That was an okay belief system, which metastasized. Absolutely, it's not in the defense of it. It's just to say it was there, and it was within that ecosystem, and then we take it away for all the reasons, and it needs to be supplanted, and with that sense of victimization, that nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm going to go eat worms. That sense of where we're misunderstood, where we have our rights. All of those voices are ones of feeling disenfranchised from the culture, hypothetically.
John,
to take your 30-year-old.
Please, I want to hear about that person, because that person is not doing his or her homework.
How do you
now?
The way there's not enough time to do this, but the most effective way to do this is basically one at a time. You cannot walk into a room full of MAGA supporters and turn anybody around, because like any group, they feed off each other and you're the idiot. But I have seen probably 15 different examples on different YouTube channels. In one case, I was almost knocked over. A young kid, 23 years old, walked up to a guy probably my age with a beard and a MAGA hat and said, "May I speak with you?"
That was probably.
And the guy said, "Sure." And he had a microphone. He said, "I'm trying to figure out exactly that question. Why are you so supportive of the MAGA movement of President Trump?" "Well, he doesn't take any crap from anybody, and he's pro-union." And well, no, let me.
I would beg to differ on that one, but
he's really not pro-union. In fact, let me show you a clip. And they showed a clip of Biden at the auto workers on the picket line, and Trump going to a non-union shop and putting down the unions. And the guy goes, "Wow, I didn't know that."
That was Luke Beasley who was interviewing. Yeah, he's amazing.
The conversation continued, and he said, "Wow, how old are you?" And the kid tells him, and he says, "You're very smart. I've learned a lot. Thank you." One-on-one. If you put that guy with two other MAGAs, the kid's dead.
Yeah. No, I get it.
And that's how, to extrapolate it back to my original, that's how our cigar group works. Yeah, there are two of them, and there are probably two of us that are as strong, and then two that are, we're really. What worked for me is I gave in a little, more than a little. I said, the only thing, and this is true, Kate knows this, the only thing that could have gotten me to vote for Joe Biden was Donald Trump. And they said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "I served in the military." Donald Trump called people who served in the military suckers and losers. I am neither. I cannot support a man who cannot support the troops. particularly if he's supposed to be the commander in chief. Man, that resonates. I
Absolutely.
can't tell you, even to guys who have not served, that resonates.
It resonates to gals who have not served. You know,
No, it's just so wrong. But like
it is so wrong. It is.
Luke Beasley thing, like it takes having that conversation at the familial level, at the friend level, just
Yeah.
not hectoring, not.
But when do you stop with it? And I understand where we're our trio here is great with regard to that, but there is a time constraint. There is people. Sorry, there is, especially with the trials, which are or not going to happen, and Eileen Cannon and all the good stuff or bad stuff that's happening there. There is a kind of a time constraint here. So how do we measure that in larger, in larger ways? Because with regard to just, it's one thing for me to talk with my family in Texas, which they're fine, by the way, but it's how do we do that on a.
So look, I have a modest hypothesis.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. All right. Which is a lot of, and I think why John and I enjoy talking with you so much is that we're bringing business expertise to bear and communications expertise to bear in this context. But one of the ways that I've built my business career is by, now this is going to sound a little outrageous to you, but here goes.
I doubt it.
By hypnotizing consumers, right?
That does not sound outrageous at all. I've been in some of your sessions.
All right. So yes. So around a huge table, and I work with a fellow who can bring a group under, and then we probe for what is the archetype, what's the thing behind the thing, right? What does this really mean? And I want to do it with MAGA members. I want to do it with Biden member, like I want to do it with, if you look at John's 3-part group, the hardcore right, the hardcore left, and the middle, and hear what these words mean. The words like patriotism, the words like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. What do they mean to them? What's it tethered to? We ask their first, most beautiful, most
very worthy endeavor. Yeah.
Yeah. So like a corporation typically is what's funded my work. Corporation isn't going to do that on a political system, right?
Do you have a GoFundMe?
Yep. I said that.
We'll put that link.
Okay, a couple of days ago, because I think I'm not the only one. But to your point, if we understood what it meant to them, the values that they hold, and where those are the same and where those are dissonant from the values that other cohorts hold, you'd know how to message to them.
Right.
And not just one-on-one. You'd know how, it would drive different activities. It would drive different communications. You do things differently because of that information. And that's literally why I set up this GoFundMe to be able to.
The wonderful idea.
And in time, like it takes 6 to 8
weeks. Margaritis, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a terrific idea, and with social media, you can really target. But if you look at how most elections are won, it's almost whoever has the most money, because they can just.
If that's the case, Biden's going to win because he has a lot more right now.
And he's also producing some spectacular commercials.
I love the Lincoln Project stuff.
Me too. But I just saw a new Biden one that he took on something head on, which I really appreciated. I saw Sean Hannity going, well, we should be asking, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And Biden runs a whole ad on that.
TikTok. 4 years ago, I was in COVID sitting.
Showing exactly what was going on in 2020. Right. And Trump telling you to drink bleach and inject bleach.
It might be an interesting.
I take no responsibility, and watching people die and seeing, And it's like, that's where you were 4 years ago.
A million people died. But on that day that he was interviewed and he looked over to her, and I forget her name, you know, could we inject bleach, you know, like in the body? And she looked at him like, oh my God, I can't believe you're saying that. At that point in time, I think it was almost to this day in 2020, there were 400 people dead, not a million people dead. We did not yet know our trajectory with regard to that nightmare. So am I better off now than 4 years ago? You bet your gorgeous bum, you know. The thing is, are we preaching to the choir?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No.
I love John Margaritis. He makes me feel like the tooth fairy's alive, because he makes me believe in like magic dust. I love it. No, good magic dust.
Yeah. Good
No,
magic.
right, Kate?
Yeah.
Does he do that for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We are not preaching to the choir. We're preaching to everyone. The people who are in the choir are fine. They can get the repeated message. It's not going to bother them.
Right.
The people who will never be in the choir are still getting bombarded by it. And when you get hit by the same thing enough times, it may not change your mind, but it does something.
I think it does, yeah.
Then there's the mass middle. And they're saying now that there are more independents than there are either Democrats or Republicans. I don't believe that. I think there's more Democrats than any other party, but be that as it may, there's a big...
As an ex-Republican that you are, or still, yeah. I hate names. I hate calling names anyway.
There's a big gap of independence. There's huge. And those repetitive, thoughtful ads that are based on fact. Now, I've always argued that emotion will always trump fact. It's very hard to fight emotion with fact. But if you look at how this commercial uses the facts of 2020, it's a very emotional commercial.
Absolutely.
We were a mess. So if you combine emotion with fact, you can overcome, I believe, just emotion, at least with a large percentage of the population. So no, we're not preaching to the choir.
You're talking about the Lincoln Project spots, plural, right?
Well,
no, I think that was DNC. I think it was Biden.
Oh, was it DNC?
Yeah.
Either way, it's interesting how when you, if we were to, when you watch those spots, you're like, oh my God, they're so hard hitting, but oh my God, they're absolutely 100% right. If this is not, you know, it's not over the top stuff that we're trying to do for purposes of, just it's amazing.
But to the point of healing the divide, right? We can flood the zone, to use a sports metaphor. How's that?
Oh,
flood the zone. I like that, Kate.
Yeah.
You athlete, you.
Advertising, absolutely we can.
Yeah.
But again, I go back to your healing the division question. Does that heal it, or does it shrink the division? You know, like if we do earn some of the molecules away, pull them away from MAGA, from that, are we healing it or just siloing it?
Right.
Right.
I'm going to leave that right there because, yeah, you're right. You've said this before, and you both you and John have said this before.
Yeah. It's a different...
Quell my fears and bring me there, you know?
Okay. The person that's got to heal the division at the end of the day is the president. It's got to come from there, which goes back to Biden is the baseball. He's the one that can do it.
Exactly. Here's my question for you, John.
Because
is there anybody up there with a glove? This is the real question. Right. What we talked about 2 weeks ago, Biden is the baseball. We came to that conclusion thanks to you. Is there anybody up there to catch the baseball? That's the true thing.
Yeah. If you look at some of the things that he was able to do with only half of Congress behind him.
Oh, yeah.
particularly on the infrastructure bill, and you watch all these yahoos who voted against it showing up at the ribbon cutting, trying to take credit. That's how you heal. They know they're wrong. That's why they're showing up.
John,
So it
I
can happen.
I was not raised to believe this. I didn't believe this in my 20s, 30s, even 40s. But I have to tell you something. I think there are some very bad people out there
Oh, no question.
who absolutely, regardless of anything that you show them, tell them facts, all kinds of stuff in front of their faces, they will not adhere to that because of maybe, I don't know.
So is it,
I find it,
some of these people, it's about power. Some of the congressional people, they're willing to
isn't power kind of evil sometimes if you're not looking at the general whole?
Absolutely, but they're not. So let's posit that they're
Thank
not
you.
looking at the general. They're looking at themselves and how many clicks. And will anybody notice that they're showing up to the ribbon cutting, but they voted against the bill, right? Like it's that kind of hypocrisy that makes people say this is what, politics, this is the problem with politics, right? But I think you have to look at what's fueling those people, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Lauren Boebert, and it's like they're awareness junkies.
But look at James Comer,
Yeah.
Do I
or as
need
they
to?
call him now, Comer Pyle, and that other moron from Ohio. In the hearings, the impeachment hearings, they got eviscerated, and they still continue. Oh no, you have.
They
no
don't
proof.
know that they were eviscerated. That's the problem.
They're
Or
so
they're angling for Trump to be
There
reelected.
is no shame, no
none,
shame,
none, zero.
none. They don't know that they were like whooped down with like eloquent speakers from the floor that were brilliant. Oh my God.
So they're not looking at the North Star we are,
Okay.
right? Like they're pointed somewhere else. They're aligned against a different
They
star.
need to get some new prescriptions.
Or we need to understand what's motivating them. Because what's motivating them is let's get Trump reelected and let's be named to his cabinet. Or let's get Trump renominated and let's be his vice presidential nominee. Or, there's something else. There's some other driver of this other than I was sent by a democratically elected.
John, I know John wants to say something, but I want to say something very quickly. I know you for many, 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 many years, decades. I adore John, and because you respect and revere John as as much as you do, I do the same. Would you, in any way, shape, or form, ever take a job that went against your moral compass? Ever?
That's what I'm saying. Their compass,
My point is,
magnetic code to it.
but there are people that do, and they are. And the problem is that you can't speak to those people. I don't think that there is a way to focus on them.
I
So
agree.
silo them. Say, okay, we're not going to convert Comer. Right?
I wouldn't want to. Would you?
Right.
Would you want that moron as your ally?
No, I wouldn't want that moron as, I don't want him as my leader. That's for damn sure. I'll tell you that much. I don't want a lot of those morons as my leaders.
But if you knew what was motivating them,
I don't think that, okay.
then
You do know what's motivating.
then you understand
That's the point.
how to put the fear of God into them, right? Like if they saw that the voting public was moving elsewhere, they'd move. They're not gonna go and not be reelected.
There are people there that are seeing Trump lawyers, allies, cronies being thrown in jail. That does not move their needle.
I know they're lemmings. They don't realize
they are lemmings. They are true lemmings.
He's leading them over the cliff, and look at all the others who have gone over.
I can't imagine.
Trump.
I can't imagine.
He's pulling
And they're
Paul
continuing.
Manafort back.
Paul Manafort's going to be, it's like he's going to be in his cabinet, woo, on day one when he's the dictator. It's a comic book.
But it's antithetical to the title of your podcast.
You're absolutely right. That's why I have you here.
It's, you know, like I can go with the best of them, right? Like with you and John, and say this is wrong and this is wrong and this is
All
wrong.
right, John, last time you had, Kate's in charge of this episode here, but Kate, I might interject. Is there any way that John can pull us into another Biden is the baseball? What are you thinking, John?
I think it has to do with cigars.
It might.
Could be, or golf.
Yeah.
I really believe.
Is
you're not-
Biden the birdie?
Eagle.
Golf. Oh, okay. Sorry. My bad.
Eagle is even better. That's 2 under par.
Oh, okay.
No, I believe that there are people whose minds will never change. You'll never heal a Marjorie Taylor Greene because she doesn't want to be. She doesn't even know she's sick. Same thing with Matt Gaetz. Same thing with Comer.
Jordan.
The only way, they're like cancers, and the only way to get rid of them is to cut them out. And the only way to cut them out is to beat them at the elections.
Right.
Now, a Marjorie Taylor Greene will continue to be reelected because she's in a bulletproof district. The same thing with Matt Gaetz. Some of the others, and interestingly, what's his name? The former speaker,
Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy, has raised money to go after the 8 that got him thrown out as speaker.
A day late and a lot of dollars short, but go ahead.
But-
However, that's a very clean idea.
It's
Yeah.
a start.
Okay.
It's a start.
Yeah.
And it's the same strategy that Trump uses to get his candidates in, or to get the candidates that are already in, or the elected officials who are already there to heal, is by
Right.
threatening to primary them.
Right. Right.
And you can't win a primary without Trump. You can't win an election with him. And McCarthy is using his own stuff, and McCarthy is the #1 fundraiser in the Republican Party, and he will get them well financed. He thinks 4 of them are vulnerable. So all he'll do is put a different Republican candidate in there,
Right.
but it's going to shake them up some more.
So we'll take it.
And I agree, Kate, you're right. And I thank you for steering me back to my mission, which is,
So here's a thought though, Traci, which you guys have prompted. You remember in 2004, Karl Rove said that the way to win is to attack the strength, Kerry's strength. If you attack the candidate's strength, then, and it collapses, then they have nothing, right? That was the tent pole holding the whole thing up.
right.
So
Right.
Kerry had a fabulous point of view on the Vietnam War. He fought in it.
Kerry. Yeah. John.
Veteran. Yeah, John Kerry. And then he testified at Congress to end the war.
Mhm.
And there was that beautiful, who are you going to tell the last man that you're going to be the one to die over this war? Beautiful. So what did they do? They questioned his Vietnam service. That was his strength. They went right after it.
Mhm.
And they swift-boated him, right? They figured that out, and that dropped that tent pole. That, the thing that you knew about him and were impressed by was gone. So to use John's McCarthy point, it's if they go after their strengths, which are the places where a Democrat will never win,
Mhm.
but they boot the Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's a wake-up call. That begins
Big time.
that tent. So maybe that is, you know, oddly, we're, you know, what do they say? Politics, strange bedfellows, right? Like,
Yeah,
root
yeah.
on Kevin McCarthy, right, on his revenge tour, but okay.
It's not going to be the first time, and it won't be the last. I
Right.
think that makes me feel again like the tooth fairy is alive, and you know, I appreciate the fairy dust, but I think that it might be real fairy dust. I
Maybe.
want to believe that it is. I really truly do.
Because
I-
that's the only way to get those 8 out, and that's your nucleus, right? Those are the nutcases. Cool. We've solved it.
You know,
Good job.
once again, Kate, there you go. You and John have solved it.